What NFC sophomore is in for a big 2026 campaign? How do you handle the latest development in the A.J. Brown situation? And who is the biggest winner? In Tampa with Mike Evans going to Cali, plus the 7-time FFPC Dynasty champion Jeffrey Benson drops by to analyze Travis Etienne, the 2026 NFL rookie class, and so much more. We've got a great show for you. Ferrell Elliott is here. Stick around. I'm Eric Balkman. Your high-stakes fantasy football hour starts now.
Can't stand the pressure. I've seen greater men than me, the lesser.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now watching the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. Welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for analysis from the best players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott.
Solace in the scripture. Are we not all our father's sons? I became a man, nobody ever told me what a man was.
Thank you, Rob. Greetings and salutations.
Can't stand the pressure.
Greetings and salutations to all you Balkaholics. Sorry for the verbal diarrhea there. My name is Eric Balkman. This is the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. It is presented by myffpc.com. You can find me on X at Eric Balkman. You know me from the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown, the FFPC Insider Access Show, the Fantasy Football Players Championship, of course, at myffpc.com. My co-host is the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, Ferrell Elliott. Coming up on tonight's show, we've got a lot to get to, ladies and gentlemen. I already mentioned a bunch of it. We'll also get into the Carolina Panthers number 2 wide receiver situation for those of you drafting right now, which I think is a bunch of you who are watching the show tonight. We'll also talk about James Cook and his role with the Buffalo Bills offense now that DJ Moore is in there. We'll get into that. Plus, our friend, the 7-time FFPC Dynasty Fantasy Football Champion Jeffrey Benson, will weigh in on a bunch of people, including but not limited to the 2026 NFL rookie class, Tyler Shook in your best ball and dynasty teams, and much more. If you want to connect with us on X, we are at HSFF or at Eric Balkman. Of course, check out the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship at KFFSC.com. That's what Ferrell runs. And of course, highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com is the best way to get a hold of us via email. If you have any questions for us, send them in now. We'll try to get to all the chat room questions, X posts, and emails in our fantasy feedback segment later on in the show. Thanks to our audio engineer, my best friend Bryce, and of course, our producer and mutual friend Rob. Excuse me. Now, what I want to really tell you about tonight is something that is weighing on the minds of fantasy football players everywhere. And that is the Never Too Early Best Ball and the Never Too Early Superflex Best Ball tournaments right now. We have a situation where the Never Too Early tournament is 85% full. The Superflex version of that is 91% full right now. Why is this important? Because whether these sell out or not, they will close less than 1 week from, or no, excuse me, just over 1 week from today. Once the NFL draft starts, those contests close. These are our first contests, our first tournaments of the season. Register now at myffpc.com. You're eligible for a $40,000 grand prize if you want to get into the Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament. You are eligible for a $10,000 grand prize. It's just a $35 entry fee if you want to get into the Superflex version of this tournament. myffpc.com is where to go. Remember, they will close when the NFL draft starts, and they will close before that if they reach capacity. So get in now while the getting's good, while you can still be, as Ferrell said, always says, don't be a wish I had. Get in now to take advantage of these 2 separate 5-figure grand prizes. We also have some Dynasty Orphans available. We have crossed the 300 orphan plateau. Fewer than 300 orphans remain. What does this mean to you? Well, if you want to play fantasy football year-round, now is the time to get in, because once the orphans sell out, that is it for orphans for the season. We won't have any more. And we are nearly again, just over 8 days away from the FFPC, or excuse me, the NFL draft, not the FFPC draft, the NFL draft. And you want to get these orphans scooped up by then to see what you can take advantage of when the NFL draft starts. We have the 500 to 1250 levels right now, never lower than what you'll see right now for those prices. Some have negative prices. Yeah, that means you get paid to manage this team for a year. MyFFPC.com is where to go for that. If you want to get in on redraft, FFPC Big Gorilla and FFPC Baby Gorilla available at MyFFPC.com. $1 million grand prize, $100,000 grand prize, respectively. $350 entry, $125 entry. Don't forget with the Big Gorilla, you're also getting in on the 7 Bananas promo, as well as the early Rampage tournament, a $25,000 grand prize available right now. 2 tournaments for the price of 1 entry fee. You can't beat that. For all those things and everything else we have going on with the FFPC, go to myffpc.com. Remember to like this video, subscribe to this channel, comment on the video, share with your friends, share with your enemies, and get notified each and every time we go live at myffpc.com. That's myffpc.com. Want to welcome in a guy who took the week off last week from this show. He was still hard at work. I want to hammer that home. He was not taking the week off, but he is back here, ladies and gentlemen, tonight to much critical acclaim. Please welcome in the definitive commissioner of fantasy football. Connect with him on X, connect with him on Instagram at Ferrell Elliott, and of course, the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship, KFFSC.com, Mr. Ferrell Elliott. Ferrell, good evening, sir, and welcome.
Oh, Balky, it is so good to see you. You got a little something in your throat tonight, but you still sound like the broadcast professional that we love and know. This week, it's a 3-city tour that I went on. It was capped with spending some time with some of my favorite people. And one of yours, of course, we hold that in common, Balky. Maybe 2 years that we hold in common. But one of them that I want to talk about tonight is none other than our beloved Dom Gazzetti, who is looking forward to drafting in everything you've been talking about. Now, what about the 7 Bananas, Balky? Is it about ready to sell out as well?
No, the 7 Bananas is going to go throughout the course of the season, which is fantastic.
That's what people need to know.
Right, yeah. So the 7 Bananas, listen, you play in the Big Gorilla, you always have a shot at the at the 7 Bananas. The early Rampage tournament, however, that will sell out at some point. Basically,
because early is in its name. It's in the name.
Yes, it is in the name. You need to get in on the first 200 leagues, which are still filling with the Big Gorilla at myffpc.com. And then you're still eligible for that separate $25,000 grand prize. Tommy Herron, who has been on this show and was on Extra Reps with us a few weeks ago, is the defending champ of that, a $25,000 grand prize. He took 4th place overall for the million as well, Ferrell. So for anybody that's saying, if I draft early, I can't win, Tommy Herron is living proof that you can win when you draft early.
I've been drafting across a couple of the formats, mostly the Big Gorilla and the Baby Gorilla. I have been it worked out that a slow draft I was in concluded right before I went on my 8-day trip last week. Now, I'll tell you, I really missed drafting. I'm thinking about today. It was bittersweet because I really had a productive trip and would have liked to spend a couple more days on the road. But I'm also looking to get home. And I said, but when I get home, I can start drafting again. So I'm glad to see the FFPC can still accommodate my needs to get another draft started. I'm going to join one tonight, Bucky.
Good for you. And I joined another KFFSC draft. I've been having a lot of fun drafting there. I'm in a draft masters with a bunch of people who have been on this show before.
Yeah.
And excited to continue that draft. We'll see what happens. I think we're in like round 18 or 19 or whatever. So a lot of fun drafting with the FFPC and KFFSC.com.
Well, Adam Hahn led tonight's show off with a very interesting post.
He wants to know why the NFL draft has to be the last weekend in April. It should be this weekend. Well, I'll tell you this, Adam. I'm with you, but I will say this. If we get to the last weekend in April next year and the NFL draft already happened, I'll be like, God, why couldn't the NFL draft be this weekend?
I'll tell you guys something. It always seems a long time for me, and it's a long process. But actually, that time is well used. And they get those scouts off the road in early April, and they sit them down. They want to cover everyone and give everyone a pro day that deserves a pro day. And they want to get their area scouts back, and they want to put their heads together. and figure out what's going on. And the pro personnel then joins in with college scouting, the college scouting director. So I really love Adam, I'm ready to get going too, but it's only 8 more days, buddy. And I tell you, as a fan of fantasy football, the decisions are being made this week. A great deal of decisions are made this week, unless you're a Raider. They've already made their decision. And, Tom Smith and the other Dolphin fans that play in the FFPC and the KFFSC, they're in for a real treat because they've got 7 of the first 100 picks.
As of right now, we can see some wheeling and dealing.
Yeah, it could be a little bit of that. They could be like some of our Dynasty owners and want to start throwing all these trades around.
I won't forget being up in Northeast Wisconsin where I live, and I was at the draft last year where I found out this bombshell about Travis Hunter. It was insane. And I don't think we get anything about that, this year. But it remains to be seen who starts throwing their weight around in the first round, at the top half of the first round, like we saw with Jacksonville last year. And Ferrell, speaking of Travis Hunter, he's in the news based on one report from John Shipley from SportsIllustrated.com, who believes that Travis Hunter will continue playing wide receiver in 2026. Now, there's a lot to unpack here. I'm going to get my thoughts out before I let you weigh in on this. There have been a lot of people, Ian Rappaport, Adam Schefter, some other people commenting that the Jaguars are going to have Travis Hunter play mostly at corner this season. And according to John Shipley, who covers the Jaguars for SI.com, Shipley believes that they are, quote, completely misrepresenting comments, end quote, made by general manager James Gladstone and some other front office officials back in February. Shipley wrote this, that these people have a lack of, quote, media literacy. Shipley has said that these people, league observers, league pundits, have incorrectly believed that Hunter's full-time role as wideout is over in Jacksonville. Quote from Shipley from his piece at Sports Illustrated. Quote, at 0 point have the Jaguars ever once indicated he will not play both ways, just as he did last year. Shipley also said that Liam Cohen has, quote, embraced the disrespect, end quote, of reporters who intentionally misinterpret what the Jaguars front office has stated. Quote, he will just play more cornerback. That is what Shipley said. That is what the Jaguars have said. If you look back to last season in his rookie year, Travis Hunter, 4 catches, 42 yards per game. That was his average before he had that knee injury in week 7, which ended his 2025 campaign. Based on what we see in the offseason and training camp and preseason, that will lead us to believe what we believe about Travis Hunter. Ferrell, this is my point with John Shipley here. I have read not only this piece, but I've read a lot of other things that John Shipley has written for Sports Illustrated. And while we can look at this particular article and say, my God, Travis Hunter is slated for some wide receiver reps, some serious wide receiver reps this year. If you look at some of the other stuff that Shipley has written this year, I would say it's not effusive in his assertion that Hunter is going to have a significant role at wide receiver. He's more calling out his fellow media members here. That's what this piece is to me, attacking other people in the media who have said that he is going to be a full-time corner this year rather than wide receiver. I have yet to see anything. And again, take this for what it is, with other people taking this piece and saying, oh my God, he's still going to play a lot of wide receiver this year. I don't think Shipley's saying that either. I think what he is saying is it is too early to say what his role is going to be. In fact, in one of his pieces that he wrote, Ferrell, he said that his role may go week to week based on what the Jaguars need. It's obvious this year that they are not flush at corner like they were last year. And they, quite frankly, have a lot more wide receiver talent at that position in 2026. So Hunter you would think, ostensibly be required to play more on defense rather than offense. Here's what I'm surmising from this. We don't know yet. There's still a lot of question marks. It could go either way. I'm obviously leaning towards Hunter being more of a corner this year, but I also leave open the possibility for the range of outcomes for Hunter to have a significant impact at wide receiver. I think the range of outcomes would dictate that he will significantly be more involved at defense and will probably have a minimal role on offense. But I also understand that I leave it open for him having a big game, or a big season at wide receiver this year. And I'm treating him that way in best ball drafts, in all my drafts right now, where I'm not going to be drafting him as a wide receiver 3 or wide receiver 4. But after that, yes, I understand there is a possibility, Ferrell, that we can see Travis Hunter not only do what he did last year, but maybe even do so more on the offensive end.
John Shipley's going to have a hard time in the media room after he accuses everyone of lacking media literacy. I don't know, what kind of scores he's settling. I'm going to stick to what I said previously. Adam Hahn just filled in something here that echoes what I've always known, but the true facts of it are that unless you're Superman, and even if you are, you can't play all these snaps on both sides of the ball and be effective. You can't even play occasional snaps on both sides of the ball and be effective, because you actually hurt the team. If you're not in the meetings and the systems and the offensive installs, the defensive installs, it's problematic. Now, if you're short on one side of the ball, maybe this guy plays certain games on offense, more snaps, and then flips back to defense next week. That's what Shipley appears to be hitting at. I believe it's a foolish way to take this player through his career, and I don't believe with the wide receiver class that we have coming into the league. And I'm not so sure how many picks that the Jags have, but with this wide receiver class from this year, you said he was 4 from 42 last year. We can find a lot of guys that are going to supply that, a lot of guys, and it just doesn't make sense to me to utilize this player this way. And as fantasy players, we're thinking offense, but a shutdown corner with great ball skills is a wonderful, wonderful position to fill in football.
I think that I don't disagree with anything that you just said. And I think Schefter, and I have to look up the Schefter quote here, but he was most telling, and like he used the phrase, they will use him at wide receiver like they did last year. And if that's the case, Ferrell, he played a lot more wide receiver than corner last year. And I'm wondering, and I'll look up the mojo on Travis Hunter right now. If we look at the Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament over the last 10 days, courtesy of fantasymojo.com, at FantasyMojo on X. Darren Armani runs that website. Get a subscription to fantasymojo.com. If you are playing in the FFPC, it is worth its weight in gold. Over the last 10 days in the FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament, wide receiver 64 at the 15-12, Ferrell.
Who's before and who's after?
This is Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel, who are going right before him. And then it's Hunter, and then it's Judy, Dell, Tesla. I am more than willing to take a chance on Travis Hunter at that price based on what I know now. And quite frankly, the Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament closes in 8 days. So this is when you need to be striking while the iron's hot.
Balky, I'm going to let you draft him, and I'm going to double down on anyone else that drafts him. I hope those players are drafting close to me and are in my league. I, on the other hand, would look at this group of rookies. I think, and this is a note to all our Dynasty owners, pay attention to that draft all 3 days coming up next week, because in the 5th, 6th, and 7th round, you're going to find wide receivers that have talent that are equal to 2nd and 3rd rounders in previous year. Next year's the year for quarterbacks. This year's the year for wide receivers.
It is an incredibly deep wide receiver draft this year, ladies and gentlemen. And for any of you who are prepping for your rookie drafts and knowing, that this is, as they all are, Ferrell, this rookie draft is important in building your dynasty teams. Why don't we talk with a guy who has had a lot of critical acclaim in crushing his rookie drafts, not only his rookie drafts, but winning dynasty leagues as well. He's got 7 to his name. He's doing, or excuse me, he's got 3 to his name. No, I beg your pardon. He's got 7 to his name over his career. I believe he won at least 3 last year. I have to check my numbers on that. But he joins the show tonight, ladies and gentlemen, to talk a lot about how he's been able to keep up his dominance in these leagues, who he's targeting in his rookie drafts this year, as well as what you should be doing with your veterans on your Dynasty teams right now. Please welcome in the 7-time FFPC Dynasty League champion, Mr. Jeff Benson. Jeff, good evening, sir. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me, Eric. Appreciate it.
I am excited to have you on for multiple reasons. But one thing, well, number one, and so I'm going to get to this in a second. I want to tee you up for something that you brought up with me. Before we get to Dynasty football, when you're not crushing all these Dynasty leagues, what are you doing for a living?
That's a good question. So it's funny. I spent my whole career has been in educational publishing. So I worked at like textbooks, educational materials. And then since my last job ended, I've been working as a stand-in on like movies and TV shows. And if I'm not getting stand-in work, I've been doing like background work. So that's what I've been doing for the last like 6 months, just random work like that.
All right, Jeff, you can't drop something like that. You have to give us some television shows, some films. What can you tell us about specific ones that you've been working on?
Nothing. I don't know. Nothing really. I mean, it's a very weird, like different kind of thing to do. You just spend all day on a movie set, snacking. Standing in is fun. You literally just stand there. Like they find if you're like the same height and hair color as like an actor, basically like what they do is they use you to like stand where the actor stands to like set up the camera. So so it's just a weird thing. Like one day you'll spend like 15, 16 hours on a set. Next day you'll spend 2 and you won't, maybe this fucks the job. I've made a lot of, 10 to 20 second appearances on random, movies and TV shows.
Now, Jeff, be honest, there's nothing particularly weird about this. In your situation, you would have a producer, and a casting director probably take a look at the pool, and they take a look at your picture and they throw you in the pool, and then the director makes a director call for handsome guy number 1, and boom, there you are. So I mean, come on, don't be so modest. You're a professional actor on his way, and then some guy's going to say, some deep distant relative of Coppola is going to say, "Hey, did you see handsome guy number 1 from that last film? We bring him in here. We got to get him. Let's see if he can talk." And you'll have this show on your resume to say, "Well, they don't look at it." Yeah. So I think you're on your way. Being here tonight may help just launch this way, way, way into the stars.
Jeff, we've had some SAG-AFTRA like card holders on this show before. Are you holding one as well, being a stand-in? I don't know how that works.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right, so Rubio is already chiming in. He thinks he saw you on an episode of Breaking Bad, which granted had to be like 10 years ago. Did you ever do any Vince Gilligan work?
No, I have not. Everything I've done in Jersey, everything I've done is New York City. So.
Okay, all right. So again, I'm going to hammer this home. If you want to give us a non-answer, that's fine. But there's no television shows, no films, no actors that you can share with us tonight that you have stood in for.
I have, none of the actors I've stood in for have been like super like big actors. Usually it's like supporting actors. But yeah, I've been working on on shows. Like I've been working on like the Gilded Age, like all these like the shows that the FBI's, Law and Order.
Yes, absolutely.
And new like Meet the Fockers, all the stuff that like films out here. It's like you just go from one thing to another, whatever needs someone, and you just show up.
All right, this is great stuff. This is great
I tell
you also think, Ferrell, that Jeff was Italian number 2 on one.
Italian number 2, yeah. It's
I did play an Italian in The Irishman, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Critically acclaimed Netflix film, Pacino, De Niro, everybody. Now they say that they use de-aging in those films to show. I think they just use Jeff. Ferrell. I don't think
he's too thin to be Italian guy number 1. Rubio's right on top of it. Italian guy number 1 is, he's just lots and lots of pasta there and, stuff like that.
All right. So Ferrell, before you get into the fantasy football, like prognostication about player evaluation, I have to give Jeff an opportunity here. Jeff, you let me know about this before we went on air, and I want you to be specific if it was this show or if it was another show. But somebody on an FFPC podcast ripped you in the FFPC Dynasty 500 number 36 league for making a trade that said that it was a horrible trade, it was bad, it was going to come back to bite you. And not only did it not come back to bite you, but you are celebrating a three-peat championship in that league. Can you let us know about what the trade details were, whether it was this podcast, and whether you'd like to address anything about specific trade, knowing that you're a three-peat champion of that?
It was not this podcast, although this is a great podcast. I've been listening since the days of like the old co-host many years ago. I'll slow down. These are my basically at this point now, these are my only two must fantasy podcasts.
That's awesome.
But when I first started playing in the FFPC, I was looking for like specifically like FFPC content. Mm-hmm. And I found a YouTube show. It was called The Goat District. This was like pre-COVID, right? This is like a while ago, right? It was a great show. And I used to like listen to it or watch it like every week. And then when that ended, like the hosts and the people of that show went on to do different things. Right. Theo's like on my million show. Right. So I've been listening to their podcasts. What is this, like 8 years, 9 years, whatever. So great podcasters, whatever. And so in this league, so I'm listening on the trade deadline. I was listening to, it was like a Theo Greminger podcast, and he had Dan Williamson on from like the Goat District, right? Mm-hmm. So I've listened to these podcasts for like a million hours, right? And they're talking about like questionable trades they've seen in like dynasty leagues. And I hadn't really been thinking about it, but like Dan had joined like my league, one of my leagues as an orphan. Like, so he didn't, it was like a team he had just taken over. It wasn't like he was in it for very long, whatever.
Right.
But anyway, at the trade deadline, I was trying to get rid of AJ Brown and Devontae Adams.
And how many years ago was this, Jeff?
This was this year.
This past year. Perfect.
Yeah. So my team, I'd won the last 2 years. This year, I was in first place by like 10 points. And AJ Brown, like he was having a really bad year, up and down. And there was like no way I was starting him. Like my team is deep enough that I didn't need to start him. And Puka, I had Puka Nacua, and he had been injured. So like I had actually traded for Devontae Adams to kind of fill in while Puka was out. Puka was on the way back. And Devontae Adams had a couple like 2 touchdown games. I figured in the like veterans, like you can't trade in the offseason. Like no one's trading first round picks for like Devontae Adams. He's no one's trade. Like I don't know, like AJ Brown, people see him, they're like, oh my gosh, he's so old. Like I don't want to trade for him. Everyone has the rookie fever. And so my team was deep enough where I figured like I could trade these guys. I could trade these guys if I could package these guys for a first round pick, get them off my roster. I felt like I could still win the league. And then in this offseason, rather than trying to like frantically trade Devontae Adams, an aging veteran or whatever, a first round pick to play with. So I traded Devontae Adams, AJ Brown, and Isaiah Likely for a future first. And then I used the roster space to pick up Jacoby Brissett and Colby Parkinson, right? And my team in this, I've got it's pretty stacked. So I was listening to this podcast, and basically they totally ripped me. They were like, it was really funny. They were like, oh, in this dynasty league we have this really sharp owner made a great trade. He totally squeezed this guy out of AJ Brown, and I'm like. And the funny thing was like the pick ended up being the 105. And when they're making fun of me, like, oh, like AJ Brown for a late first, like, oh my gosh, and Isaiah Likely, that's like, so bad. And it's like, and they were talking about, Devontae Adams is the new goal line back. And it's like, for me, it's like, I coasted through the rest of the league. I've got Cook, Jonathan Taylor, McBride, and now I've got the 105, and I don't think it's like I won the trade or like it was a bad trade for the other guy. It's just one of those things where it's like, I shopped AJ Brown to every single team in the league. Not a single team was willing to trade a first round pick for him. No one wants these veterans, So it's very easy on like a podcast where like, oh, if you've got a good veteran, you can trade him for a first or like a rookie. Like a lot of these leagues, no one's doing that. So you got to figure out, like in this league, that guy had sent me a counter of like 2 second round picks for AJ Brown. So I figured, all right, let me see if I can get a first and not still win the league this year, but then set my team up to continue having like first round picks to like, keep the, either draft another elite player or, trade it for a better player.
I think the other thing too to consider this is everybody's in different spots when it comes to dynasty leagues, right? And everybody has their own agenda. It's just like media, right? Like when you listen to somebody talking, whether it's politics or news or fantasy football, everybody's got their own agenda that they want to put out. And your agenda was clearly different than what I think the prevailing thought was, Jeff, on what needed to be done. But clearly you knew your team better than anybody else, as well you should. And guess what? It worked out to a fantasy championship. So kudos to you, sir, and kudos again, because that worked out very nicely for you, not only this year, but the previous 2 years, applying the same logic to this team as you are now. You're going for a 4-peat in this league, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Insane.
By the way, Ferrell's in that league, I think. I didn't realize that until like a year or two ago, but he's in that league, or he was.
Hey, Ferrell, where are you? Where is the fight? Where, as Bill Walton would say, where's the competitive response? You got to start taking down Jeff Benson in this league. He's dominating.
Well, I actually, Balky, I'm not following the other individuals in the league, with the exception of the 26ers who invited me to join those. And Jeff, thank you for noticing that I was in the league. I find it vexing enough just trying to keep up with my team, not to see how everybody else is dancing around. And if you have ever sent me a trade offer, it probably hasn't been acted on, and I would have been guilty of accepting all those players for that first round pick. So I think I'll look forward to your next one. But what number is it? I'll look it up tonight.
500, number 36, Ferrell.
Oh, I think that's an orphan team I adopted, and that is perhaps the ugliest orphan that's ever been available. But nevertheless, we'll persevere. You know, it's really...
I'm looking it up right now. Ferrell, you are in this league. Tim Gilbertson is in this league as well, former guest of the show. I hopefully I'm not outing anybody here.
Balky, would you tell me my draft pick?
There's a lot of good owners in that league. Like guys that are on your show. So.
Drew Maselli, Kurt Kikas, our good buddy Joe Van Gogh.
You gotta love that Joe Van Gogh.
Ryan Valenti, another former guest of this show. Farrell, I'm looking it up right now.
Well, that's why it was funny, is because they're like, oh, some sharp owner took advantage of you, and I'm like, this league is all really good owners that I've heard on this show, and I've been able to hold my own with them. So it's just funny they're but I think that's
now you let the genie out of the bottle, and everybody's going to be working on Benson, buddy. I'm telling you.
Oh, this is great, by the way, Ferrell. I don't know if you traded for it or what have you. You have the number 1 pick.
Yes, these are all the drafts that I'm proud of, and I don't believe I traded for it. I believe I earned it, Balky.
Okay,
I think I was best amongst the also rans, which is saying something.
It is saying something, and I'm looking at this right now, Jeff. In this league, you have he
has a 12 pick.
He has the 12. So
he won the thing.
You guys want to work out a trade on the show tonight? I'm not gonna.
Well, yeah,
I don't have the 12. I traded the 12.
Well, you didn't trade the 12. You're right.
I have the 105 from this trade where I traded for the late first.
100%. Yes. Yeah. You have the 105 in this. So Ferrell, it wouldn't be a big drop down if you want to arrange something.
Just see if you can prepare and see if love falls to you, because I'm going KC Concepcion with the first pick.
There you go.
Just make Balky happy. No, I'm pretty proud to have the first pick this year over other years. But hey, let's talk about Tucker Kraft. I rarely get, Scott Hoyt says, why is likely always mentioned every time I come to a show? And Scott, I would tell you, why do I never get a Green Bay Packer question? It's because Balky hoards them all. And he is an expert of the Packers, being that his geographical location as well as his head and the heart are very well connected. This Tucker last year blows out his ACL on the eve of his 25th birthday. This year he's going to be 26. 9-month healing period. He should be ready to go. Tucker Kraft. What are you looking forward to with the Green Bay Packer tight end this year? Do you have him on your successful dynasty teams? Will you be targeting him in redrafts? What's your thoughts on Mr. Tucker Kraft?
I do. I have him on 3 of my 6 dynasty teams. I have Tucker Kraft.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's going to be the Packers' number one receiver, number one. The entire offense is going to run through him. I think he's going to have like a monster year. He's going to be like their version of like Travis Kelce, where he just didn't. I mean, their receivers are terrible. I mean, I know good at the end of last season. Matthew Golden did. I don't even think did he even catch a pass last year? I mean, he was invisible.
Yeah.
You know, Jaden Reed, and so I honestly think they're probably going to have. I think he's like you said, he's 26. So I think before the season, they're going to give him some like obscene contract of dollars. And the coach, they were talking about firing the coach. They have to. The offense fell apart as soon as he got hurt. So I think, we've seen players come back from ACLs totally fine the next year. Saquon Barkley, running backs come back from ACL. So I think he's going to come back stronger than ever. And I think they realize he's their best offensive player, and they're going to run the entire offense through him. And I think if you have him, he's going to smash. And if you can possibly trade for him, I would definitely recommend it.
Are you a fan of wide receiver Watson?
I don't know. I mean, I think he was really good at the end of last year. Like, I wouldn't try to acquire him at this point. But like, I mean, if you start him, there's a good chance he goes for like a long touchdown, or there's a good chance he gets 3 for 50 yards. So he's a good player to have. I'm not like targeting him though necessarily.
I want to go to Tyler Shook and go to the Big Easy here for the next question here, Jeff. And I don't know. I feel like we've danced around this subject over the last week or two, or a month or two on the show. But I want to get your opinion. Shook, was he a guy who was what we saw last year was simply scraping the surface of what he's going to be at the NFL level, especially for fantasy? Or are we going to see what we've seen before with certain players, a sophomore slump? Two schools of thought on this, maybe three schools. We can consider what's in the middle of opposite ends of the spectrum here. Where do you fall in on this?
Yeah, that's funny. We've seen like Jane Daniels, Bo Nix, some of these guys like CJ Stroud. Like, people thought he was like the best. He was going to be like the next best quarterback, and they've all fallen off. I actually think Tyler Shough could be like the next like. This is going to sound ridiculous, but like, I feel like he could be like the next, like Josh Allen, like one of these guys who like, I feel like this happens very often in the NFL where like quarterback is like such a hard thing to like, to project. We see all these first overall picks, top 10 picks bust. And then someone who like just kind of no one saw coming. Like, I think Josh Allen, he was in the first round, but he wasn't, number one overall. People said he was inaccurate. Everyone mocked like Tyler Shough for being like old or whatever. But in the games I saw of him, he was awesome. I mean, he was making great throws. He made like insane throws to like Juwan Johnson, Devon Vale, like guys who were not huge stars. And then towards the end of the season, he showed great chemistry with Chris Olave. And now they just added Travis Etienne, like the best pass catching back in the league last year. And he can run, and he's like huge. So I think the fact that he sat for half the year is actually good. And he came on strong towards the end. All the coaches and everything are coming back. Like, a lot of times, rookie quarterbacks that do well, like, as soon as they do well, like the coaches leave, people leave. So I think he's scratching the surface. I think there's a lot of upside with him for sure.
Balky, he's a regular pickup in the never too early best balls, right? I mean, he's not going undrafted any longer.
Okay, well, so the never too early best ball tournament, you're looking at, if you want to grab Tyler Shough, you have to soak an 11th round pick into him. This is not even like a late round pick. This is quarterback 20 for Shough. Right now, this is right after Kyler Murray and Jordan Love, and it's right before Malik Willis and CJ Stroud. So he's rubbing elbows with difference makers at the quarterback position.
Yeah, and I think he is a difference maker, and Jeff's right on it. And
actually, I've done 3 of the never too early best ball leagues. I have Tyler Shough in all 3.
There you go.
And actually, what you just said is hilarious. Like, he's going around. Kyler Murray was like the worst quarterback in the league last year.
Yes, yeah.
And so like this idea. So it was interesting is in these best ball leagues, like the never too earlys, quarterback like dries up. It's not like a redraft. Like, you kind of have to get your quarterbacks early. And so like, if you don't take a quarterback in the 10th round, like like Malik Willis goes right. It's like, it's very, you're basically out of luck if you don't get one when the quarterbacks start going. And so it's funny when you say like, it seems like a high pick, to get him right around Kyler Murray and Jordan Love. Like, Kyler Murray was was legit horrible last year. He was terrible. And so I guess it's like one of those things where they think because he's going to like Kevin O'Connell, like he's going to be good all of a sudden. Like, I don't know. I'd much rather have Tyler Show. And he was also way better than like, Jared Goff, Baker. He was better than all those guys last year in the last few weeks. And now he's got Travis Etienne. So
yeah, he finished strong. And Adam points out, likely to get another weapon here in the first round. So I really like
that's a good point. Yeah, if he gets another wide receiver, if he's got Olave, a first or second wide receiver, good tight end, pass catching running back. And again, their defense is also gives up points too. So
yeah, I mean, I think we think like Tate or Tyson or Lemon, but like Sadiq with Juwan Johnson, I think could be very interesting the way the NFL is going this year to be able to put Johnson and Sadiq out there with Olave on the outside. And then you have the dual threat in the backfield with Etienne and Kamara as well. So a lot of weapons. And certainly if New Orleans decides to go with a pass catcher in round one, it's not going to hurt the fantasy possibility of Tyler Shuck this year. And certainly he's trending up, Ferrell, but the former wide receiver and maybe still current wide receiver in San Francisco, soon to be former, I don't know how it's working right now, but he is not going on the Shuck trajectory at the moment in regards to Brandon Ayuk. I think that's
you want me to handle the Ayuk?
Well, I mean, just you frame it how you want to frame it, Ferrell, with Ayuk. But certainly, this is a player that FFPC owners want to get right at this point.
I don't think you can get it right. I don't think whatever you do now, it will be right. It's a blind ass guess, and I just really there's so many stories that. Underscore this player's lack of contribution to his own personal career that could possibly hurt a football team. I don't know if the stories are true, but I don't hear anybody talking about the fact that I saw Brandon Ayuk working hard, and that makes him a non-entity. And we're talking about Dynasty. I don't know if you could get a market for him in trading him. There might be some hardcore believer that thinks that they might be getting a bargain for Ayuk. I don't know, Jeff. What do you think?
Well, as I was just looking at my rosters from those new never too early best ball leagues, I do have Ayuk on all of them. I traded for him in one dynasty league, and I think if you have him, you just hold him. And if you can,
why didn't you mix him in one of those giant trades? You could have got him.
Well, the thing is, with Brandon Ayuk, right? So. We're at the point with Brandon Ayuk where there's no downside. The rumor that was floating around for all year is that he wants to go to Commanders to play with Jaden Daniels.
Yep.
So I would just think about Brandon Ayuk like this. Just imagine that he gets released in June. They say they're going to cut him in June or whatever, and he signs like a 2 or 3 year contract with the Commanders. Like, what's he worth? And if you can get him for a 3rd round pick, 4th round pick, 5th round pick, like, why not? Isn't that better than just like a random pick? Like, what's the downside?
Maybe not this year. Maybe not this year. Yeah, your dynasty 4th and 5th round pick at receiver could be a stud this year.
I don't know.
That's true, Ferrell. Yes, you are correct in that. But I happen to agree here with Jeff. Is we have already seen it with Ayuk, right? And if you're giving up that little of draft capital in your rookie leagues, as much as we hold these draft picks in high regard, I think there is something to be said about taking a spin down the Ayuk lane and seeing what happens with him going forward.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the things I've learned in Dynasty. I was started out, it's like you just want the rookies, you want the picks. And I learned from, there's an owner who's in one of my 1250 league. He's been in there the whole time. I've heard him on your show. Jason something.
I'm going to look this up right now.
He's like, I think he's the best Dynasty owner I've seen in all this time. And his team is always good. It's always competitive. And he's always cycling like veteran players that are not like popular. And he still drafts well. And I kind of learned just from like watching him. It's like, it's very easy to be like, oh, Brandon Ayuk stinks. He hasn't, why? It's like, what's the downside? Like, I mean, most of these late round rookie picks don't hit. And yeah, if you look at like Alec Pierce getting a ton of money, Wan'Dale Robinson getting a ton of money, if Brandon Ayuk is legit a free agent 2 months from now, some team is going to pay him a ton of money. So I just think if you can get him for cheap, you can get him in the 15th round of a best ball league, you just take him. There's just not that much downside at this point.
Jeff, are we talking about Jason Steves? Is that who you're referring to? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. He is tremendous. Great player, dynasty and redraft for sure.
Unbelievable. Yeah. His team is legit, in the playoffs every single year.
Yeah.
And he's so good at getting these veterans that nobody wants, but also, maintaining draft picks. So I think Brandon Ayuk is one of those where if you had asked me this a few years ago, or maybe even long, I'm like, oh, he's a veteran who hasn't done that well in 2 years. I don't want him. But now I'm like, what's the downside? Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's a strategy that we are, it's an easy thing to adapt to when we consider dynasty, right? It's an easy thing to say, let's acquire these veterans that nobody wants, and then, trade them for, get their value to go up on my team. And then, but trying to figure out who those veterans are, it's kind of a tough situation, but you're putting a few chips on Ayuk this year.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. Like I said, in this league, someone's like, Ayuk available for a pick. All I had left was a third. Because I usually trade all my picks. So I was like, all right, I guess I'm giving you a third. And then I had Jordan Mason on my roster. And it's like, you know what? I'll cut Jordan Mason. What's at this point, I'm a lot less precious about cutting players or trading players. It's all about making sure I have the best starting lineup and the best core of players possible. And you just, work around it. And I've seen Ayuk drop to other leagues and traded for much later picks than that. So it really just depends on who you're league. But I think a player like that, you just, if you need a receiver, you just buy him.
Yeah. Which makes
cut him, whatever.
It's kind of one of those high low risk, high reward type players at this point with in regards to Ayuk. A player that is not high risk, but there's definitely some risk. James Cook. If we put it in a redraft standpoint here, just for a second, Jeff, as I ask you this question, a lot of people thought he was going to regress in 2024. A lot of people thought he was going to regress in 2025, myself included, and it didn't happen, right? He still has been climbing up in redraft value. He's been climbing up in dynasty value. The Bills went out and got DJ Moore this year. I don't know if this is an exclamation point or it is a declaration that they are going to throw the ball more this year, that they are not going to be as reliant on the ground game as they have been in the last couple of seasons. That remains in the realm of possibilities, right? But I want to get your take, specifically James Cook this year. Is regression coming for any reason, but also bringing in regard of the possibility of the reason of DJ Moore now being a member of the Buffalo Bills franchise?
I think so. This is tough. So that, regression is an interesting thing, especially in fantasy football, because the idea is okay, if a player had 10 touchdowns last year, he's going to regress and not get 10 touchdowns. Or if a player only got 2 touchdowns, they're going to positively regress and get more. But in both situations, it's so if a player has a monster year, I'm just not supposed to draft him the next year, so I don't. So it's funny. It's we waited for Christian McCaffrey to regress for 4 years, and he finally does, and then the next year he's back and better than ever. So it's I would say with James Cook, he's just awesome, and a lot of his plays grinded out. He needs 20 carries. He breaks a long run. He takes a sweep. If they use him in the passing game, so. I don't know. I think if he has less volume, I think the explosive runs will still be there. It didn't seem I know earlier on they would always swap him out at the goal line. It seemed like this year they're giving him goal line carries. So I don't know. DJ Moore is he's one of those players that he's always had a lot of hype behind him, but he's never really been that productive. He's never been great. He was okay in Chicago. He was okay in Carolina, but there's a reason why he's been traded 3 times, I think. Yeah. So I think he'll be good with Josh Allen, and if it helps the offense, it probably helps James Cook. I wouldn't argue against regression. Obviously, if a player scored a bunch last year, they might score less touchdowns this year. But I've seen nothing in James Cook that makes me think he's gonna, not be as good last year. And also the fact that they promoted the offensive coordinator to head coach.
Yep.
I think shows that it was pretty clear. The guy who ran the offense last year, he ran it through James Cook, and now he's got the head job. So I don't, so I feel that also shows some good consistency. But like, I certainly wouldn't argue with the theory that he might score less than he did last year. But I don't know if that answers the question. But I think he'll still be good. He's still young and in his prime, and like, yeah. So if he doesn't score as much last year, so be it. The analytics nerd can have that one, but I don't think you draft based on it.
Well, that's the thing. Like he can still regress and still be a great pick and still hold his dynasty value. That's the other thing to keep in mind too. Is like he doesn't necessarily have to regress to the point like, oh my God, he was unbelievable in 2024 and unbelievable in 2025. Now he has to not be good in 2026, or he has to be an also ran in 2026 where he's barely scraping 1,100 total yards and 8 or 9 touchdowns or whatever. He can still come through and help you out this year, even if his totals are down from the previous 2 years, Jeff. And like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that's what we have to talk about in regards to regression. Regression could happen, but it still could be to a level of where he's still paying off on his dynasty value and his ADP.
Yeah, and I think the other thing where I think not to speak positive like the regression stuff, it's like that's where you're weighing like when you're paying for last year's production in like if you're like in redraft or like ADP, it's like, are you paying for last year's production or are you drafting the best player this year? So like a good example would be someone like Ashton Genty, who was not that productive as a rookie, but he flashed like huge upside, right? So if James Cook's ADP, which is ahead of Ashton Genty, I think that's something where you might be like, okay, am I drafting James Cook higher because of what he scored last year? Or do I think he's going to, outproduce Genty this year with like a new coach, a new offensive line? So I think that's where like regression is a good thing to like weigh is like, are you paying for last year's production versus like someone else who maybe hasn't done it yet, but you think they have the ability to do it,
Right.
So
Chris
that's
Rodriguez
the guy going like 2
has
spots behind him. Maybe
opportunity.
the guys going like 2 or 3 spots behind him might actually be better. Maybe A-Chain will be better again. That's so that's kind of where you weigh it. But I guess if you're, someone who listens to this podcast, you're probably drafting a bunch of teams and you can get your shares.
That's a truism. Okay, here's a running back I want to talk about because I was University of Kentucky's Chris Rodriguez, and when he came into the league, I was expecting big things, and he was silenced as a Washington Commander. He hardly ever touched the ball. Finally, he got to start a game last year. He got to start about half the games last year. What's always impressed me about him is he always seems to pick a hole. He always seems to be tough to bring down. He's the best elements of a speed back and a bigger back. And so I just, the new home in Jacksonville, especially with the exit of Etienne, sets up a situation for him that I think is very exciting. And in the early drafting that I've done, if I look back at it, I'd probably say I wish I had more Chris Rodriguez. Your thoughts on this running back? Do you have him in your dynasty teams? And if you do, I imagine you're quite happy about it.
I have him in one team. I traded for him. This was like I took over like a $1 orphan, and the first trade I made, I offered the 207 for Wan'Dale Robinson and Chris Rodriguez because it's like it's a team that needs work, and 2 players who signed big free agent contracts, so that was like an easy trade to make. Where again, the guy I'm trading with is clearly making a profit. Those are probably guys who got off waivers, and I'm giving him a 2nd round pick. I think Ferrell, this is one of those ones where like I think you're probably right. I think if you can get him for a good price, just buy him. Like this is one of those things where and again, if I'm just like playing Dynasty a while, like people like to make fun of like GMs and front offices and like coaches, how no one knows what they're doing. But it's like they gave this guy a pretty big free agent contract. They were a good offense. He's probably going to be their goal line back. Can score some touchdowns. So if you can get him for a reasonable price, I think you do it. So like I said, I added him in one league. I think if you can get him in the mid rounds of a best ball draft.
What is it that you particularly like about him?
What was that?
What is it that you particularly like about him? What is his aspect as a football player that you like about it?
Oh, honestly, I have no idea. I mean, I saw him score some touchdowns last year. He was big. He like rumbled over people.
Okay.
I don't know. I'll be honest, I'm like clueless when it comes to college football. Like I don't know. I don't watch college football. But like the thing is, like last year, there was no hype. I think there was really no hype around him, right? It was
he'd never been given any opportunity. What I like about him is he always averages 4.7, 4.8 yards per carry, and that's the kind of running back that I love to have on a team.
Yeah, no, that's where you're right. Is like they wanted to give Ja'Cory what's his name, Krosky Merritt.
Yeah.
And then there was someone else behind him too. Was it
a guy named Austin Eckler?
Well, there was a few guys ahead of Rodriguez on the depth chart last year, so it wasn't like the regime or the coaching staff was hot. And then he basically just played he basically played his way onto the field, I guess, for lack of a better word. But it didn't matter if they wanted to get the rookie going or they wanted to get other guys going. Like they just saw enough of him that they trusted him in big spots, and he came through for them. And I think for me, what I'm looking at as far as this year was just that the Jacksonville coaching staff, which seems to be, based on what we saw last year, pretty capable. That was their guy. They literally targeted him and signed him right away. That's the kind of guy where you might think he'd be out there on the free agent market for like a month, a few weeks, and they signed him right away. So I think that tells you what you need to know. And again, it also comes down to price. If you're getting in the double-digit rounds of a redraft league, you're trading. I don't know what the actual price is in Dynasty. Like I said, I only made that one trade for him. I did make an offer of a third-round pick for him, which got rejected. So I don't really know how people are valuing him, but I think if you can get him for a good value, what's the downside? Do I really need my future a pick from 2027, or do I want a guy who can come in and score maybe 8 touchdowns this year if they're on the goal line a lot?
Our good buddy Scott Hoyt, who was on Extra Reps last week, said Jeremy McNichols.
McNichols.
Rodriguez beat up last year. So thank you for that, Scott. I want to skip ahead a little bit here because we're running low on time. Rookies, Jeff. Everybody loves Jeremiah Love. Certainly everybody is picking and choosing who their favorite wide receiver is in this class. And I think tight ends come down to 2 players as far as who your favorite tight end is, but maybe it's longer than that. Besides Jeremiah Love, is there any rookie that is really exciting you to see where they end up one day and 1 week from now as you look forward to adding some of these players onto your dynasty teams?
No, so I don't watch college football. I'm completely clueless. Usually now will be the time where leading up to the draft where I'm starting to learn about rookies. But I've also kind of built my teams to the point where I'm really focused on trying to get all really good players on all my. I'm less interested. I would say the one player I'm interested in is there's a wide receiver from Ohio State, Tate, I believe is his name. Mm-hmm. And those wide receivers have hit every year for the last 5 years. So I would say if you can get him, get him. The rookie Sadiq, the tight end, I think we've seen rookie tight ends now make impacts right away. That was something that the logic was they don't make tight end, it takes years for them to develop. I think if he's as good as he's projected going very high in the first round to pass heavy teams. So I think that's a guy, if he goes to the Buccaneers, honestly, wherever he goes, I think landing spot is overrated. I think that's a guy you could comfortably take in the top, a top 5. But I would say, Ohio State wide receiver, now that I've seen these rookie tight ends really hit, those would be the 2 I would try to get. Other than that, trying to get veterans.
This really surprises me because as a dynasty player, I would think that you would look at a great deal of rookie players in their college careers. So you really are putting your trust in the front offices of the NFL and following what they do in the draft, which is another way to do it. You're outsourcing some of the best brains of football and not letting your own head get in the way. And I think that's pretty clever. So,
well, it depends. I do look. It depends on where my team is at. So, my team in one of the leagues, there was a couple of years ago, I had the 102 and the 103, right? So I was listening. I was very reading up on things, watching podcasts or whatever. And it's I got Jahmyr Gibbs at the 102 and Jackson Smith and Jigba at the 103. Now that I have those 2 players on my roster, I'm not trying to get another. I'm not trying to add a
And you did not have to.
I'm trying to build around those guys right now while they're producing at a high level. I'm doing everything I can to get talent around them so I can, lead again.
You did not have to see those players do it in college to know you wanted them in the pros because you saw enough.
Yeah.
Couple of quick emails I'm going to fire at you, Jeff. Mark in Littleton, Colorado. He writes, how big of a step forward is Emeka Egbuka going to be this season without Mike Evans on the team? That is Mark in Littleton, Colorado. Not only Egbuka, but Jalen McMillan, Chris Godwin, but specifically talking about Egbuka here, no Mike Evans. How big does that relate to Egbuka's fantasy production in year 2 for him in the National Football League, Jeff?
You could see kind of what we saw with him at the beginning part of the season, where he was like a really productive. Like it's funny in that one of my leagues, I drafted him, and I was expecting I'd like sit him on my bench all year. I was like, okay, well, this is a guy. I had the 112. I trade up to the 110. I get him like, all right, this is a guy to stash on my bench all year, and he produced right away. So I think I'm not concerned about like the late season, not lack of production. I think he'll take definitely a step. But we'll see. Like it was kind of concerning, like what their offense was doing last year. But I think maybe Baker Mayfield was hurt. But again, he flashed right away. I think if you can acquire him, don't. I wouldn't hesitate to draft him. I do similar. I think McMillan and Godwin are going to produce still. And so same with Bucky Irving. So I would say it's probably fair to say he'll do that high end kind of production he was producing early last year. But he's not going to like dominate all the targets or anything, or take it like a huge step to
Our good buddy to Adam Hahn in the chat also mentioning Tez Johnson. I'll also mention K-Dot and whatever. And like, there's a non-zero chance that Tampa takes a tight end early, day 1 or day 2.
Yeah.
In fact, whether that's Claire or Sadiq or Stowers, like who knows, regards to that as well. One more email for you tonight, Jeff. This is from John in Pacomia, California. If you are a Travis Etienne, FFPC owner in Dynasty, how nervous should you feel about Alvin Kamara still being on the team? Thank you, John in Pacomia, California. Jeff, this is interesting because
many
of us thought Kamara was not going to be on the team, and now it's looking like maybe he still will be in 2026.
I mean, they gave Travis Etienne, a huge amount of money. I think they're going to use him in all aspects of the game. So I wouldn't be concerned at all. I mean, I would be the level of concern would be, that James Cook has like Ray Davis backing him up. Like, who cares? Like, they just spent, I think they're going to do a ton of, I think they're going to like really design their offense around like Etienne. He's going to catch a ton of passes. And, if Alvin Kamara mixes in on like a third down here or there, like no big deal. So if you have Travis Etienne, you should be very happy. You should be happy about his landing spot, and the contract and the offense for sure.
Ferrell, I'm very excited, very happy to hear you ask this final question of one Jeff Benson tonight as we tackle the most important query that our listeners have been waiting for this entire show.
Jeff, we end up every show with this question, and I think it's probably poorly utilized here because like many of the Dynasty players, and I think you may have perfected it, you can get to the root of finding the value in just about any player. And I'm going to be watching us in our upcoming draft to actually follow your moves, and I'm looking forward to that. But go ahead and tell me someone that you do not want on your Dynasty teams. I may be focusing on the draft. And then tell me someone that is a must-get for you. And that can be either a rookie or a veteran, a veteran that you would, again, load up the wagon with rostered riches and go out and make a deal that people couldn't figure out, but you would know would lead you to a championship.
So I'm trying to – the players like I want to avoid, I would say I'm like Steelers, Broncos, like Ravens. I just these players where they get they're just so inconsistent. Like even like Zay Flowers, he's a good player. Half the time you start him, he does nothing. And like Michael Pittman going to the Steelers, like why would you ever want Michael Pittman on your roster? Like what are you getting?
Oh my God! Now do you can I
he's the kind of player I want to get. I want no part of.
Hold on. I respectfully, Jeff, I appreciate this comment from you, but I have to give our good buddy Ferrell Elliott a rebuttal, who I am not 100% convinced is not in some way biologically related to the way that
I'm emotionally and mentally related to any player that brings to a locker room and a team what Michael Pittman does. And so when Michael Pittman goes on the field and how that translates into fantasy football numbers, people want him to succeed. They want to win, and they want Pittman to be a focal point of it. He is that much loved by the team. And you know what? In a place where your quarterback might have a bit of an abrasive personality, the smiling farmer from Indiana might be the kind of guy that you want on your roster. And I can understand, with your wealth of riches acquired through fantasy football and in your superior knowledge of Dynasty, that you could win without 100 catch receivers in the good year and 80 catch receivers in the bad year. But, I will have to say it in this situation, you and I are in agreement about Zay Flowers, and we'll just leave it at that.
And there's one other player you should avoid, and that's if someone in the media says there's a player who's going to play the Joker role in the Sean Payton offense, absolutely avoid him. Any of that nonsense of these is just, I remember try to avoid that. I don't know. I guess that was a good role. I remember one year when I first played Dynasty, someone said it was Eric Ebron was going to play the Jimmy Graham role. And I was like, oh, I got to get Eric Ebron. And that's when I learned, don't fall for this stuff. So any player who gets that kind of attention, just stay away.
it makes perfect sense.
And then the player I'm trying to get, if I can, Parker Washington, number one, if I can get him. And Wan'Dale Robinson is an absurd value. Other thing I've learned over the years, landing spot is the most overrated thing. We've seen Hollywood Brown to the Chiefs. We've seen guys, all these guys go to landing spots and they're terrible. And then, Cole Beasley goes to the Bills and it's a smash. So, Wan'Dale Robinson, he signed a $78 million contract. Brian Daboll, his head coach, who just fed him 1 million targets in New York, is now the offensive coordinator there. And you just don't worry about teams, what they did last year. 2 years ago, the Jaguars team in the league, right? And Travis Etienne was horrible. So I think Wan'Dale Robinson, again, he's a guy you can get for very cheap. I'm sure if you offer a second-round pick for him right now, the person will accept. And again, he's going to walk into 1 million targets. He's got a huge contract. I think, and again, he's a guy you can have you can keep him on. He is solid. He's on your bench. Then you get an injury, you get a bye week, you put him in there. 10 targets. It's because what I found in Dynasty, that's the tricky part is you have a good starting lineup, but then the bye weeks hit, the injuries hit, and that's when your team falls off. And if you can plug in a guy like Wan'Dale Robinson or one of these guys who maybe is not a big name, but has a decent role, and they're, again, to what I was saying earlier, they have a big role in their team. They're not a guy who's up and down. Those are valuable guys to have, even if they're not exciting players to maybe trade for.
A high floor player that you can plug in one of your flexes, and that's going to get you through several weeks. Listen, Jeff, this has been so much. We have gotten through a lot of Dynasty analysis, fantasy football analysis tonight. I congratulate you on all the Dynasty titles you've already won. I wish you the best of luck in all your future titles in the Fantasy Football Players Championship and as you compete in these Dynasty leagues. And the next time you are standing in for a Ben Affleck, for a Brad Pitt, for a Matt Damon on the latest television show / film or whatever you're doing, the fact that you'd be thinking about this podcast while letting the light hit you in the same way it hits Ben Affleck's coiffed hair, that would be tremendous for this show. I kidding aside, thank you so much for making us a part of your Wednesday evening. Be good, and we'll talk with you again soon.
See you, Jeff.
That is Jeff Benson, ladies and gentlemen, the 7-time FFPC Dynasty League champion, and stand into the stars here as we wrap up things for this evening on the show tonight. A lot of stuff, Ferrell, that we got to tonight. A lot of stuff we didn't get to, but that's okay because we'll get to it on Friday night with extra reps. Derek Greer coming up.
Derek Greer's coming on Friday night.
He absolutely is. It's
Fantastic. Why don't you tell the listeners who Derek Greer is?
Derek Greer is a 10-time winner of FFPC Main Event and Big Gorilla drafts. And Ferrell, I don't even know how many Kentucky leagues he's won.
Oh, he's doing well. He's been here with us 2 years. This last year was his first year where he was here in body, and he had a blast. Brought his lovely wife with him. This year in tow with him is his son. And I'm so thrilled to have them both in the room. It's I can't wait for August. Adam Hahn can't wait for the NFL draft. I can't wait for the KFFSC draft. But Balky, you got a lot to do between now and then. Maybe I should wait.
We do. And by the way, there's a lot of drafting to be done in the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship from now until then. KFFSC.com, the Draft Masters, the main event. I know I'm registered for a ton. My dance card is full, as the kids say.
Sweet 16 Best Ball Championship, Balky, with Jeremy Fozzie Dog Brock, the standing champion. That's the league everybody ought to come and pony up their $100 and get in that and play for our $3,000 grand prize. But, Balky, I'll tell you this. There's nothing that hits like our main event live, and we're going to have a special announcement next week in regards to special additions to our KFFSC main event family.
I can't wait. I'm very excited for that. My Louisville my Louisville punch card. I have 10 drafts. I think, or maybe it's 11 that I'm signed up for that week. I'm very excited for that. Until then, I'm still loading up on slow drafts, which I love to do in the off season. It's easy for me to pop in, pop out, make a pick, pop out. It's great. KFFSC.com is ready to do that. Ferrell, we will talk with you again this Friday night.
See you Friday, brother.
You got it. That is Ferrell Elliott, the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, hanging out with us tonight here on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. I want to thank Jeff Benson, Ferrell Elliott, the FFPC, Rob, Bryce, and of course, each and every one of you. We will be back on Wednesday night, the NFL Draft Eve, Wednesday night, 10 p.m. Eastern Time. 3-time FFPC Dynasty League champ Tom Weaver. He won all 3 last year. Played in 3, won 3. It's going to be great. Tom Weaver joins us next Wednesday, I should say. Insider access on all the FFPC socials will go live at 7:00 tomorrow night with player profiler, contributor, and the FF Dynasty co-host Jeremiah Retzlaff. Coach Retzlaff will be joining me for 2 full hours tomorrow night. Don't miss it. The FFPC Extra Reps episode with Derek Greer will pop off at 10 p.m. Eastern Time this Friday. 10-time main event and Big Gorilla champ Derek Greer joining us on that. And we'll get into some of the stuff we didn't get to tonight, which is going to be great. Dynasty and Empire Dynasty Orphans for as little as $1 at myffpc.com. 8 days remain to draft in the FFPC Never Too Early and Never Too Early Superflex Best Ball Tournaments. And, of course, the Big Gorilla and the Baby Gorilla filling up at myffpc.com, myffpc.com. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on the video, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies, and get notified each and every time we go live, which will be 7 p.m. Thursday night with myself and Jeremiah Retzlaff from Player Profiler and the FF Dynasty on Insider Access. It's going to be a blast. As our friend Vince Staffolino reminds us, you are officially over the hump right now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com. It was broadcast live and was watched around the world. Balky and Ferrell will be back next week with more analysis, more interviews, and more advice from guests much smarter than they are. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk with you again next week.
I always say that there's only 8 days left for the Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament. Well, if it reaches capacity before then there's not 8 days left. It will close out when it closes out. We have just over 216 teams left in the Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament. In the Never Too Early Superflex Best Ball Tournament, just over 200 teams left there as well. 216 in the Classic and 212 left in the Superflex version. So those are going to go quick. Sign up now at myffpc.com. That's myffpc.com. For Jeff Benson, and Ferrell Elliott. I'm Eric Balkman. This has been the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. We will talk with you again on this program next Wednesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. We will talk with you on these airwaves at 7 p.m. tomorrow with myself and Jeremiah Retzlaff from Player Profiler and the FF Dynasty. Be good, everybody. Enjoy your Wednesday evening and your Thursday. Until we talk again, have a good one.